the reach of these webinars. We also participated in 3 virtual bilingual community meetings with the school districts and reached approximately 150 community members during those efforts. We, in those 3 months, sent out 2 postcards reaching 36,000 households. Every household in the city received a postcard about the eviction moratorium twice, and it was in 3 languages. And it also went out to all of our CSFRA landlords. We also sent out an informational packet to CSFRA landlords that included all of the information about the eviction moratorium plus any forms that they might need. And these all went out in, the informational packet went out in June. We also did 28 targeted emails and MyMV messages during this time period. We reached 415 MyMV contacts with each MyMV message, 35 neighborhood associations, 33 landlord representatives, 21 tenant representatives, 17 community organizations, and 12 school district contacts. Additionally, we created and maintained 3 web pages in 2 languages during this time period, English and Spanish. We also have since added a page in Mandarin for a total of 4,395 page views. We had 3 fillable forms that we created and maintained, 2 landlord forms and 1 for tenants in 3 languages. We also created 2 packets for tenants and landlords that contained all of the relevant forms and information for both parties. We created 4 informational documents, including 2 info sheets and 2 FAQs in 3 languages. And we expanded our reach into social media with 8 Facebook posts that were shared across multiple platforms. We made 2 short videos in 3 languages and 2 13-minute Q&A videos during this time. And 2 press releases were shared in multiple languages. All of these different outreach efforts were shared via Nextdoor, WhatsApp, WeChat, and through community organizations. And again, here's that information presented slightly differently. And I wanted to focus a little bit on our web pages for the eviction moratorium. You can see here there is a full page dedicated to the Spanish, and it has everything, including the videos, the forms, the info sheets, all of the links translated into Spanish, and it's updated as frequently as we update the English and the Mandarin pages. It's quite a lift, and we are excited to get to take the experience that we've learned here and transition it into our own web pages as we begin to, as we continue to update and modify them for the website update that we're working on. Also, we created a second infographic flyer for the eviction moratorium for the state, which was released last week. It's cut in half here just so that we can zoom in on it a little bit more. It has all of our very basic information displayed as simply as possible, and it is available in English and Spanish, and Mandarin will be up on the website probably on Wednesday. For 2021, we're sticking with the same goal and the same objectives, but we are obviously updating our activities, so how we'll achieve those. During fiscal year 2021, we'll be focusing on a multimodal outreach strategy that includes informational videos, social media, webinars, virtual meetups, and community meetings. So all of those things that we were hoping to do last year, live and in person, will transition to a webinar web-based platform. We are also working on our Facebook page, and as I mentioned, we will continue making videos that are not related to just the eviction moratorium. We will have targeted videos for things like the mediation program, as well as our rent stabilization program. The main focuses of that, the rent stabilization and the eviction protections. And we will be completing the redesign of the website. Again, we will have that pages in both Spanish and English, and materials available in multiple languages as well. Objective 2 we will tackle by fostering public engagement through the creation of unique community experiences, such as virtual open houses, city-based drive-in events, and material distributions. So we've already been participating in city-based drive-in events through the senior center and materials distributions through the school district and through community organizations, and we will continue that effort. We'll also be broadening our multilingual resources, including web pages, webinars, and materials. We've already been hosting for the first time fully translated webinars, and we will continue that. Our next one is in December that is specific to the rent stabilization program and focuses on mediation but for landlords and tenants, and it's a tenant-focused webinar. And then our third objective will be achieved by releasing phase 3 of the rent registry online platform. That is the tenant petition platform. We'll also be completing and releasing phase 4 of the rent registry online platform. That is for landlord petitions. And also the platform will be expanded for our mandatory registration that we have to include more broad areas of information related to units and unit registry. That will be released in the next few months. We'll also be virtually deploying customer satisfaction surveys. We had started doing this last year. They were all hard paper format as we were transitioning toward a virtual option as well. And now we will be transitioning into a virtual option fully because we can't deploy them in person anymore. And that concludes the overview of our outreach efforts for the past fiscal year and what we're planning for the current fiscal year. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions from any members of the committee?
I have one. Patricia, would you say that presumably once we're through COVID and social distancing and whatnot, do you think we'll maintain some of the virtual outreach? Has it been successful and something we want to keep?
Oh, most definitely. I think that, well, the plan going forward, if and when we're able to resume in-person workshops, will be to have in-person workshops every month and a virtual workshop as well.
Awesome.
We actually have found that it's far more accessible for people who traditionally can't make it out to somewhere. And plus we've also found that the people who are able to attend are more frequently the community members that we have the harder time reaching. And so we really want to make sure that we can continue to reach those community members and have found this to be such a valuable tool that we will definitely continue. We've also found that having different times is helpful. So we found that for property managers and landlords and property owners, having a webinar in the afternoon is really beneficial for them, but that doesn't work for most of the other community members. They need something in the evening. We're also learning more about the different times of day that different ethnic community groups can meet at or want to meet at or can participate at, and incorporating that feedback into how we adjust our meeting schedule. So for instance, we're planning our second Mandarin Eviction Moratorium webinar, and we received feedback that the time that we had it at in the evening was at dinner time, and it needed to not be at dinner time. So we'll be floating that one earlier or later, depending on the community's feedback for what time is best for them. It's a lot more flexible, and we definitely want to continue that flexibility as we go forward.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee members?
I have one. First, actually, did we remove the option to raise hands? Or maybe I'm just in the wrong mode in Zoom. Well, anyway, a question for another time. So first, thanks Patricia for the presentation. Obviously, a lot of work and time and effort are being put in here. First question: some of these intersect, right? So with what the city, with their purview, right? So when it comes to the COVID and the moratorium, the state laws, obviously there's an intersection where we would have informational sessions or marketing that we would want to inform the public related to the CSFRA, and then there are other issues that we would want to inform everyone that are outside of covered units. Are we, is there any sort of splitting of costs with the city when we, make the effort to do a mailer that might go out to a larger audience than just covered units?
Yes, for these city moratoriums where we had the two that were truly city moratoriums before the state one went into effect, the Housing Department's General Fund covered the costs for the mailings. We did not. For the ones going forward, we were asked to cost share. And so that has been the plan, including with staff time, the cost sharing of actual staff time. That is also currently under review for the state moratorium. So the Housing Department and the Community Development Department and the City Manager's Office are reviewing how the cost sharing will continue, and if the cost sharing will continue, or if if we will have to figure out a different alternative in the future.
Yeah, and let me add to that we look at all these programs very carefully and how they would touch upon and impact all the CSFRA tenants and landlords. And that's also one of the reasons why these programs come to us for outreach and education. So the majority of all the tenants and landlords that we reach out to do fall under the CSFRA regulations.
Great. Yeah, as long as staff feels as though the splitting of costs is fair, then that sounds good to me as well. Second question: a lot of these numbers, I wonder if there's a way. I know that you're speaking with staff from other jurisdictions about their methods and their outreach and what they're using. Is it possible to gauge or benchmark our level of outreach versus some of those other jurisdictions, just so we kind of get a balance for, like, per capita, are we doing a lot more? I mean, I think that we're doing a lot, and I just want to make sure, or want to see if they're doing more online, if we feel like, based off of if other jurisdictions have found something to be successful in raising awareness, could we benchmark against that to see if that's maybe we move up our online and then have fewer in person, or vice versa?
We're not doing anything in person right now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just to clarify.
Virtual, yeah. I guess yeah. Scaled versus more of your high touch virtual webinars.
We've been working on refining some of the ways that we were doing workshops and in person things for the actual demographic that we were trying to reach. So we were working with different at the beginning of the year, we were working with different locations, getting our workshops outside of City Hall, which actually was very impactful in how many people were attending. Simply moving to the community center made a big difference for some of our outreach. We've also started targeting different groups, like, for instance, the senior community. We would have had an actual senior focused workshop at the senior center twice this year, which we transitioned to a webinar. Obviously, the senior center is still actually helping us put those on, which is really, really helpful. So yes, we are looking at which is the best method, but I think going forward, as Nicole was asking, having a blend of in-person and virtual will be our best bet. Additionally, the videos are very helpful, and we found that from other jurisdictions as well, and they are so easily shared that they have a very quick and broad reach. So, for instance, when the when they were shared with the community members through WeChat and WhatsApp and Nextdoor, they were then shared again by other community members. So it's a swift sharing opportunity that isn't a very heavy lift on our end, as long as we're not having to, frequently redo them. So now that we've actually worked through the challenges of learning how to do those and how to do them effectively, we can replicate them now quickly, and we can now replicate them quickly with our translations team, which is an impressive achievement for them as well. They've been just imperative in us being successful with the eviction moratorium, and we're looking forward to taking all the lessons that we've learned from that and just transitioning it straight over to the rent stabilization program. So we are definitely kind of figuring out how best to blend even just print material, right? So what materials do we need to have printed versus what materials need to only be available online, and then how do we share? Now, actually, it's been requested within the community to have us have printed packets that go out to people more aggressively about all of the work that we're doing, and especially about the eviction moratorium. So we will be seeing a ramp up in those costs. And in printing costs of getting things like the helpline card out, getting our tenant protections card out, the infographic that I shared earlier for the eviction moratorium, that's going to be all shared with the school districts and with a lot of the community organizations, and actually be distributed with the with those community organizations as we continue to go forward in this slightly precarious time. So it's interesting to see how it kind of is impacting both sides. So we're doing more virtual, and we're also learning, that also doesn't work for all of the community members, and at the same time, it makes it more accessible for community members that we can't reach otherwise. So it's been quite a learning experience, very fast.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in addition to seeing if we need to change strategy, the other reason I was asking about other jurisdictions is if we are doing best-in-class outreach, I'd like to kind of be able to quantify that or toot our own horn to some extent. So that was the other reason behind the question there. So thank you for all that work. The last question I had was on this slide, actually here, you're saying that you might deploy customer service satisfaction surveys. And that would be good at evaluating, how well have we served the individuals who have reached out to us. I think one of the other pieces of information we're interested in is what's general awareness, right? So, I mean, part of the problem is, are people aware of the laws? Do they know who to go to when there is a problem? That sort of thing. And I'm wondering if, we could get, put some funding toward kind of awareness research, right? Like whether that's phone or online, but some sort of market research that would assess the awareness and familiarity with the CSFRA and with our program. Because you have been doing the mailers. I think that would help, even if those individuals don't need the services now. Hopefully that raises their awareness that it exists. So if there's an opportunity to, add that to the research docket, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we can look into, and I could see it even going in the newsletter that will go out. We have a newsletter that's scheduled to go out within the next week or two, and then we have one will be back on our normal biannual schedule coming up in January or February. So I think having even just a link to hey, what's your general knowledge? Do you know about this? We could think about different ways to get that kind of research done. I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Matt.
Sure, thanks.
All right, it looks like we have a raised hand from Susan, our Vice Chair Allman.
First, I want to echo what Matt was talking about. I want to congratulate the staff, not only on the work you've done, but the way you report it. I have to do a report back to a community group once a month on RHC activities, and I'm going to just send them this PowerPoint. You saved me a lot of time, but they're all continually impressed by your work. It's not just that I toot your horn. And I wouldn't be surprised if many would be interested in printed packets. I'll know that next month. So thank you so much. I just cannot believe with the small staff that we have how much we accomplish. It's really amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I did have a couple quick questions. One, since COVID happened, we're not doing any petition clinics, are we? Or are we doing those over Zoom?
We're doing them over Zoom. So in June, we transitioned everything, webinars and clinics, and now they're not clinics, they are virtual office hours, and they happen every Friday instead of every first and third Friday. So they have transitioned into being a little bit more broad so we can reach as many people who need help as possible. And we've actually had pretty good participation over the past few months and have had quite a few petition specific inquiries as well.
Okay, that's actually nice to hear. I kind of want to sit in on those. And the other question I had was related to I think I forgot it already. So we'll move on to public comment. Unless we have any more questions from committee members. Any more questions? Seeing none, let's move on to public comment. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Staff will keep time and announce when 1 minute remains. I see no raised hands. Have we received any emails on the subject matter since 5 p.m.?
We have not received any emails.
Thank you. All right, bringing it back to committee for deliberation and comments. I do not believe we have, we will just be providing feedback. We will not be voting on anything. So is there any feedback and comments the committee members would like to bring up? Anyone? Okay, staff, thank you so much for your time on this and presenting all of this. I am looking forward to seeing Objective 3 be put into place. And we will move on to item 8.
I should say that the phase 3 of the rent registry for the tenant petitions will be available soon, right, Andrea?
Yeah, it should be released to the public at the latest in early December, at the latest. So that's exciting.
Oh, I do remember my question now. Earlier in the presentation, you mentioned you'll be doing some updates for to make the website and the materials more understandable and easier for people to navigate through. How are we making those decisions? Are we doing any user testing, or is it based on the feedback that we are getting? How are we?
It's based on feedback that we've received from the community, as well as market research and what other communities are doing, plus some just basic user experience in kind of infrastructure stuff. So making it easier to navigate when you go to a page, having it say essentially ask a question, are you a tenant, are you a landlord? If you're a landlord, here are the forms you need. You click on a button, you can see all the forms you need. If you're a tenant, you can click on that button, here are all the tenant forms you need. So making it more navigatable that way, and then also having those pages and information be displayed in different languages. So we know for sure that we need some of our pages completely translated into Spanish, and some of the information will be far more accessible to the communities that we're trying to reach if we have it actually done that way, just like we do for the eviction moratorium. So we're taking in all of the community feedback that we've received. We've been in very close contact with community organizations and community members for the past 6 months, 8 months, specifically about what our materials look like, how they're being received, what we could be doing differently. And as we move forward, weaving all of that in with legal counsel and the things that we have to say, and have to say in specific ways, even if it, might not be the most simplified version that would be the easiest to understand. So it's a lot of weaving of a lot of different information sources to be able to come up with something that is legally accurate and also more community focused. So we're working with all of that different knowledge and information and moving forward. And hopefully once we end up with something that we feel is as communicative as we'd like it to be, we can then go into having some sort of community feedback about what people would like to see and how they would like information displayed. But we definitely want to get through that first round of development.
All right, thank you. And with that, if there are no other comments, let's move on to 8.2.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Draft 8.2, draft RHC work plan for calendar year 2021. And we have a staff presentation.
Yeah, good evening, Chair Ramos and Vice Chair Almond and members of the Rental Housing Committee. This agenda item is on the agenda today for the Rental Housing Committee to review a draft work plan for calendar year 2021 and provide feedback to staff, both in terms of content and timeline. A little bit of background, the Rental Housing Committee is charged with a number of tasks laid out in the CSFRA. This includes establishing rules and regulations for the administration of the CSFRA, determining the annual general adjustments of rent, approving the annual budget and rental housing fees, and hearing appeals in the petition process. This draft work plan is kind of an outline of a list of tasks, overviews, and issues the Rental Housing Committee may want to bring forward for discussion, consideration, review, and potential adoption in order to further implement and administer the CSFRA. So in other words, it's a blueprint to guide the work of the Rental Housing Committee. And if necessary or desired, this work plan may at any time be adjusted accordingly by the Rental Housing Committee. So the way this draft work plan is laid out, it is comprised of the following bucketed items. First, there's agenda items that are listed on an as-needed basis, such as appeal hearings. The Rental Housing Committee is the official body to preside over an appeal hearing in case a petition hearing decision is challenged. Also regulations. The Rental Housing Committee under this agenda item could consider introduction, adoption, or revision of policies. As an example, we're currently in the middle of capital improvement regulations. Then there are monthly items such as data reports, and updates on workshops and clinics, and the COVID-19 programs, of course. Then we have certain quarterly or biannual items, such as the quarterly financials and the CPI index report. Then there are administrative annual items, such as election of a chair and a vice chair, the budget and fees, the AGA, contract renewals, and staff also gives yearly overviews of certain segments of our program, such as the tenant relocation activities, the petition and hearing processes, and outreach and education, like we just received from Patricia. And of course, annually, we also determine the meeting schedule and, as we are doing right now, the work plan. This is the attachment to the memo, and it gives all the dates of next year that have been approved by the Rental Housing Committee and the schedule of agenda items as laid out before. And we really would request the input of the Rental Housing Committee to make this work plan a robust guideline for the Rental Housing Committee for the next year. If you have any questions or comments, greatly appreciated. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Anki. Do we have any questions or comments from committee members? Don't all jump in at once. All right, seeing none, I'm going to go to public comment. Would any members of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Staff will keep time and announce when 1 minute remains. Any speakers? We had a hand raised, then it went down. All right, I'll bring it back to the committee. I'm assuming we didn't have any emails after 5 p.m., correct?
That is correct.
All right, so we're bringing it back to committee for any feedback and deliberation. Do we have any feedback or deliberation? All right, committee member Haynes-Lipsey.
You know, I think this looks really good. I like that we have a broad outline. I think it is also very hard right now to firm up much because of the current environment, and it's a very unique environment. One thing that, you know, I think we should be thinking about is some of the discussions that we've had in the last several meetings. I did see that we're bringing back the capital improvement regulations. I don't know if that includes the CPI discussion that was embedded in those when we had the last discussion on those capital improvement regulations. If we would want to do a study session on something like CPI, different CPI metrics, and what those metrics embody in each of them, that may be something that would be beneficial. And maybe we do it since I know there's a changeover of seats and potential changing in the second half of the, or in the first quarter of the year roughly. Maybe we do it, you know, in the May-June area, or maybe we do it sooner, but that was an idea that I had. I think this is going to be in flux though, as we figure out the current environment and where we are in 3, 6, 7 months.
Thank you for that, committee member Haynes-Lipsey. I agree that a lot of things will be in flux, so we're kind of keeping it as loose as we can. I do like that we did list that we're going to do capital improvements in January so that we can give people enough leeway to provide input on that from all parties. And we'll probably do a little bit more outreach on our level as committee members and as from obviously from our staff. Do we have any other comments on the draft work plan from committee members?
I guess to that point regarding capital improvements, I mean, right now we're on a cycle where, you know, the agenda goes out with the staff report I think Thursday before, sometimes Friday before the Monday. And just wondering if there's a way to like float if some stakeholders in the community did want to have, I don't know if we've heard anything, Anki, from members of the community, if they want more time to kind of digest what's in potential regs and then give comment. If for some of these items where we see it coming a month or two in advance, is there a way to, any way to get that out earlier, I guess, for the public to digest?
Yeah, I think in the last discussion, for instance, about capital improvement regulations, I think we agreed that we're going to do stakeholder meetings before the next rental housing committee meeting, so we can definitely organize them way more ahead of time so people have the dates and the times and relevant documents available, and then we can capture all the feedback for the rental housing committee, so you have all that feedback with you when you are discussing this topic.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Almond?
I would agree with Matt on that. I have heard from community members that they'd like some advance notice, especially if community members want to attend. It helps if they know if there's a big topic coming up. And I myself would love to know too, is to reach out to community organizations to, because since COVID, the attendance at our meetings, it seems to me, from the public has really been reduced. And I understand people have a lot more on their plates than coming to an RHC meeting, but the more notice we could have for the big ticket items would really help.
Sure.
Is there a way that we can, so when people find the draft work plan, they usually delve into the agenda where we voted on it and approve it. Is there a way that we can have essentially, it's I guess it's not a draft work plan. It's something essentially similar to how City Council has the tentative agenda list. So they have like it's much more in depth, but it helps them because they do a plethora of different issues, and we have pockets available for if we do need to change regulations. But is there something similar that we can do on our end, being like coming up on the rental housing committee, this and this?
Sure, and yeah, definitely.
I think the only thing that we really have that is semi-solid, though, I think is capital improvements. Everything else seems pretty the same each week kind of thing. But if we do have essentially policy items that we would need to discuss, could we have something available for like where we get it updated? Does that sound like, I would love for my fellow committee members to weigh in whether that's a good idea or me just being dumb. I see a hand raised from committee member Haynes Lipsey.
I'm wondering if we could achieve that, and I would be interested to see if others would be open to this, by, in addition to announcing our next meeting time at the end of each meeting, also mentioning if we have any high-profile issues that might be in that next meeting. That gives people anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks to plan ahead to come, and at least know in general what the topics may be. Now, of course, we'll have some fluctuations with appeals, anything sudden that might come up like a COVID again. But in theory, we should know what our next big topic would be. Is that kind of what you're thinking, Emily?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking something where people don't have to delve in to find it. Like, they're like, what's going on right now with the RHC? They could just click on a few.
Maybe on our website? Right?
Huh? Yeah.
Maybe on the website,
Yeah, something like that.
like where we have the date for the meeting and you can sign up for the Zoom. We could also have the topics right there.
Maybe. Is that easy to do, staff? I don't know. I ask all these things and I don't know if it's like something that will take 5 minutes or 50 hours.
No, that's doable. That's definitely doable.
Okay. I guess the question is, what's the threshold of putting what would we put on? Like capital improvement seems like a
Yeah, I would say anytime we have a study session for any of proposed regulations or policy making topics, I think that would benefit probably from putting that on our website ahead of time so people can there.
And also, would it also be possible that whenever we update that portion of the website, it gets sent out to that interest list about our rules? Or like, there's that interest list of like, hey, we want to know more about the rental housing program, and it's usually that's where we get the people who want to know when the agenda is out, people who want to know. There have been several, like a number of announcements that have gone through that mechanism. Is that possible to be added, or is that like too spammy at that point?
Yeah, it's of course it's always possible. Let us think through what would be the appropriate timeline when to send out an email like that. But definitely, yes, that can be done.
All right.
I also like the recommendation, at the end of the meeting, if we have an item that's tentatively on the next. So right now, based on the draft work plan, if we could just say, I know right now capital improvements is one of the few examples we have, but I do think just kind of reiterating that at the chair's discretion, if the chair's like, remember everyone, if all goes as planned, this is on the next one. Seemed like a pretty simple solution.
Best laid plans of 2020, huh? All right. Vice Chair Allman.
I was wondering, when you click on the council or the Mountain View City website or whatever it is, and then you click on RHC, if there's a way to then say highlights for next meeting instead of just saying the date of the next meeting. I just don't want
try. Yeah, we'll try to work that out. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. So, any more committee comments? Going once, going twice. All righty. Yay, we are now done with item 8.2. The staff have all the feedback they need from us. Probably that and then some. All right, so we're going to move on to item 9. Council staff, committee and staff reports with 9.1 monthly activity report for September 2020.
Good evening, committee members. Item 9 is the committee staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports, including the monthly status update, which you can see here on the screen. This is one of the ones where we go over things not in depth. We did that recently because we had a whole bunch that we crammed together from over the summer. So just to give you a high-level overview of everything that's occurred so far, we've had 272 public inquiries made with that subset coming out for COVID-19 related topics specific to, this is all specific to CSFRA covered units. We also track data related to non-covered units that we are receiving through the rental housing helpline as well. We've received 51 inquiries in Spanish as of September, and that is representative of 19% of all inquiries made. So we are seeing an uptick in the number of community members who are reaching out to us from the Spanish-speaking community. We've so far held 6 workshops for a total of 49 attendees. And we've had 5 as of September of those open office hours with 16 attendees total. We have put out 4 Mountain View Voice ads and 5 MyMV updates, and we'll have our first rent stabilization program mailer. I think actually this might be in error. I think we actually had a postcard go out last month. I apologize for that, related to the rent registry. And that went out to all of the landlords, letting them know about the mandatory nature of the rent registry now. We've had 35 requests for mediations and conciliations. 19 of those have been resolved, and there are 11 that are still pending. We've had 6 banked rent increase notices be filed. I believe those were in July, 12 termination notices, and 1 additional occupant notice. As you can see, for the first quarter, we did see an uptick in eviction noticing related to failure to pay rent notices. And these all were with the proper noticing for 15-day notice as required under the new state law. And the reason why we've seen an uptick in the month of September was because the new state law requires that landlords provide a termination notice to their tenant with a declaration form to let them know that they're affected by COVID-19. So again, the property owner has to provide that notice for the tenant to be able to respond. We had 1 additional household that received assistance related to tenant relocation, and we've had quite a few petitions be filed in the past month. Here you can see a slight uptick where we have 4 petitions related to decrease in services, and we've had quite a few that were filed and accepted by the city to go into the hearing process in the month of October. We'll get into that in more detail next month. The vacancy rates continue to tick up. However, it has seemed to stabilize a little bit over the past month. We're not seeing as intense of an increase in any of the groups. And as opposed to the past few months where it went up for fully covered units quite a bit, it has stabilized a little and only went up 0.2% over the past month. So according to market indicators that everyone is experiencing right now, it seems as though some of that will level off for the next few months at least. The prices related to fully covered units and to all units have dropped. Specifically, especially for newly built units, they have decreased 11.5% since coming onto the market in 2017. Fully covered units have decreased, as you can see there, just like all of the other units. And if you look in line, the decrease is actually less for fully covered units than for partially covered or non-covered units. We had a few properties, I think 1 property that sold over the past month for a total of 4 units, and there are 7 properties on the market for a total of 101 units. And the CPI did not change because that number is updated in October. So we'll see that change come on the next month's status report. And we have some tenant COVID-19 landlord and tenant programs, and I think Andrea is planning to review those with you.
Yeah, so I will go over these 3 programs briefly, since they are the same programs we're looking at every month, but we're going to start off looking at the statewide eviction moratorium. All right, and this went into effect in August 31st of 2020, commonly called AB 3088, but also known as the Tenant, Homeowner, and Small Landlord Relief Act. And this provides eviction protections for tenants experiencing COVID-19 financial hardship. And again, it does cover all residential tenants in the entire state of California, including obviously Mountain View. Right, and this law is covering rents due in the period from March 4th, 2020 to January 31st of 2021. And there are a few things that tenants must do in order to be protected under this law. The first thing that they must do is notify the landlord within 15 business days after receiving their eviction notice. So like Patricia mentioned earlier, we have seen an increase in termination notices come through for non-payment of rent. And in that termination notice must be included some specific documentation, one which allows a tenant to declare a financial hardship related to COVID-19, and then the tenant must return that document back to their landlord within 15 business days. The second main point of the state law is that the tenant must pay back 25% of rent due from September 1st, 2020 to January 31st of 2020. And they must do this on or before January 31st of 2021. So those are the basics of the California eviction moratorium. Next, we're going to quickly go over the Mountain View rent relief program. So this program, again, just provides financial assistance to residents who are unable to pay their rent due to COVID-related hardships. Again, the tenants must income qualify, and this program is run through the Community Services Agency, and tenants would contact renthelp@csacares.org. And just a couple little quick updates. So far, the city has sent checks out to 1,478 households with an average assistance of $2,069. Right, and our last program that we're going to review here is the Utility Relief Program. And again, this is a one-time $50 credit to apply to a utility bill for any resident of Mountain View who is impacted by a COVID-19 financial hardship, and it can apply to water, sewer, or garbage and recycling services. You would have to income qualify for this as well. And it is nice that the city is not shutting off any utility services during this emergency for any non-payment. And they're also going to be waiving any interest on late payments. And I believe committee member Haynes Livesay asked last meeting how the city was doing any outreach for this program. So from what I found out, they do have it on the website in a few places, but they have not done any mailers, and it's currently not listed on any utility bills. But it is listed under any COVID programs that the city is offering. And those are the 3 programs for COVID-related hardships. Any questions on those?
Do we have any questions from committee members?
I just want to say thank you for getting the information on the outreach. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I did have a brief question about the, let me pull it up. Here we go. The monthly report. You mentioned an uptick in the petition, tenant petitions, and could you clarify what those tenant petitions were for?
Sure. We've received one tenant petition related to unlawful rent for a property with a master tenant who rents 72 units to the subtenants, and it's actually the master tenant who filed the petition against the property owner. We also have received, for 2 separate properties, decrease in services petitions for tenants who are basically requesting relief related to having services closed during the COVID emergency. So we have provided as much support as possible to both the tenants and the property owners, and they are now going through the hearing process for both of those, for all of those properties. So it's 3 properties, and then 2 of those properties have multiple petitions related to the same issue. We do not have any precedent related to decrease in services petitions related to a pandemic. So we will be keeping close eyes on what's happening and as we move forward with that.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions for staff?
Patricia, without going into detail about the specifics, what's the construct in which you have a master tenant with 72 subtenants? This is a tenant. Sorry, it's a tenant petition.
It is a tenant petition. So there is a master tenant who has a lease with the property owner for 72 units in Mountain View.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
I can provide a little bit more information to you offline if you would like a little bit more details on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
How much are we allowed to know without it being a conflict should it come before us?
That is a question for Karen. Karen?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can give you general information, but I do suggest that we not go into detail because I have a feeling this petition is going to show up in an appeal.
That's okay. No, let's not. No follow up necessary. Thanks, Patricia.
All right. And
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. All right. Seeing no one has any comments or questions, we are ready to adjourn the meeting.
Can I give a quick overview of what we have coming up for workshops?
Oh, yes,
really
I'm
quickly?
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So we have quite a few workshops coming up. We have on November 5th, landlord property registration workshop that is interactive, where Andrea and myself will help property owners register their property through the portal. Then we have a mediation-focused workshop coming up on November 19th at 6:30. This will be a landlord-focused workshop. We're really hoping to start to be able to get more information out about the mediation program, as people may have rent coming due related to the eviction moratorium. And then on December 3rd, we have another landlord property registration. You'll see this one's at a different time in the afternoon, as we mentioned earlier. Having afternoon workshops for property owners is very helpful. And then on December 10th, we will have a bilingual mediation for landlord-tenant issues, tenant-focused workshop. That will be at 6:30. We also have all of the eviction moratorium workshops as well. So we will have in November 1 bilingual workshop, 1 landlord-focused workshop, and then some open to all workshops as we work through the holiday schedule. And the same will be the same pattern for December. So all of this information will be updated on the website within the next few weeks. We also have those virtual office hours that I mentioned every Friday now from 1 to 3 p.m. with a standing link. So no matter what, if people type in mountainview.gov/RSP clinics, they'll come to that page and they'll be able to register for whichever virtual office hours they would like. And as always, we are willing and able to make office hours for whenever people need, and that flexibility has been very useful for some of our community members. So with that, that concludes this portion of staff's presentation.
Thank you so much. Any questions from committee members about webinars and office hours? I'm hoping to join those. Check those out. So if anyone needs to reserve their time so we don't violate any Brown Acts, stay now or forever hold your peace. Okay. All right. And now with that, we could probably adjourn. So This meeting is now adjourned at 8:16 p.m. The next Rental Housing Committee meeting is scheduled to be held on Monday, November 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m. I think this is the earliest we ended. Yay, team! Have a good night, everyone.
Yay!